COVID cases are surging once again as the BA.5 strain has become the majority variant in the U.S. in a matter of weeks. So let's separate fact from fiction tonight about what it actually means for you and me and your families and your loved ones with Fox News medical contributor Dr. Marty Makary. Good to see you back in person,
Good
Doctor.
to see you, Shannon.
Okay, so let's start here. This is what The Atlantic says. It says many studies have now consistently shown antibodies from triple vaccinated people or people who've had breakthrough infections with earlier variants are 3 to 4 times less potent at neutralizing BA.4 or BA.5 than at BA.1 or 2. It means most people are now less protected against infection than they were 2 months ago, and some people who got COVID very recently are getting reinfected now. So break that down for us. What shouldn't be worried about? It seems clearly there's another wave.
Well, certainly BA.5 is causing a bump in cases. We're seeing a real wave. It is mostly among people who were infected way a long time ago. But if you were infected with the early Omicron variants, that is, if you had COVID in January, February, March, you're at risk of BA.5, unfortunately. Now, it is causing a mild common cold-like illness. Some people are asymptomatic. Some people are sick for 1 day. Sometimes they have a little more muscle ache than they do sore throat. But we're watching the preview of BA.5 in Europe, and it does appear to be passing, and it also is not resulting in hospitalizations that are meaningful.
Okay, that's good to know. In the meantime, the Wall Street Journal has this op-ed about the people are still getting kicked out of the military. Some people are, their state jobs we talked about in the state of Washington, certain jobs, they're now saying you have to get vaxxed and boosted, even employees who were exempt at some point. So this continues. Wall Street Journal says military regulations guarantee religious freedom, but the Pentagon is defying them. More than 24,000 members of the various branches have submitted religious accommodation requests following Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's August 2021 vaccination order. Almost all of them have been rejected, and now these troops face punishment and discharge. So if the argument is that the vaccination prevents serious illness and death and prevents the spread, which the military, of course, would have an interest in doing that with people living in close quarters. What do you make of what we now know about the vaccine's ability on those fronts and thousands of people potentially being kicked out of the military?
Well, we know that the protection you get from acquiring the infection is transient. It lasts a matter of months. So if the argument that they should be vaccinated to increase readiness is an argument that you would have to carry through with getting them vaccinated every 3 months for their entire military career, that's not reasonable. What we've seen now are 200 solid studies showing that natural immunity is better than vaccinated immunity. The vast majority of these people threatened to be fired have natural immunity, people to have it out there. And so it's really tragic because the people in the hospital with COVID are not people who went through military basic training. We've never accepted as a country the massive difference in risk between a young, healthy person and an older person with comorbidity.
So when you cite, you said 200 studies
Over
or
200.
so show better efficacy for natural immunity. That's not what mainstream thought is. I mean, do you take a lot of backlash from people who say, I know you're a respected doctor, but they're not buying that?
Another study in the New England Journal of Medicine just 2 weeks ago. I mean, it is overwhelming. Any scientist who has not lost their objectivity for political allegiance has to recognize it.
Okay, so let's talk about this. Wall Street Journal editorial board also talking about what they call the never-ending COVID emergency. Monday's news leak that the Biden administration will extend the COVID-19 public health emergency, which had been scheduled in on Friday, for another 90 days was no surprise for a White House that seems to want a perpetual emergency. They say, why keep the emergency powers?
The rest of the world has moved on. The U.S. is an international outlier in the sense that we're still chasing down every case. We're doing mass testing. We're testing people multiple times. We're giving Paxlovid to low-risk people who are, and that's an off-label use. There was actually a proposal at the CDC that I learned about in some reporting for a piece I have coming out in 2 days, where scientists said, let's move to an influenza model where we sample cases rather than chase every case down in the U.S. And that proposal was rejected by the White House. People are ready to move on out there. And so keeping a public health emergency means we still do these rapid scientific reviews, and we don't go through the normal process when we approve drugs.
Oh, quickly, what is this piece you have coming out? We'll look for
It's in Barry Weiss and Common Sense. It's about the low morale at the CDC, FDA, and NIH among the very smart scientists who take issue with the big recommendations that are driven a lot by politics.
Okay, we will look forward to that. Doctor, good to see you.
Good to see you, Shannon.